The Final Furlong podcast is proudly brought to you by Jeff Banks Bet. Get up to £500 refunded as real money for new Jeff Banks online accounts after your first month of betting. Use promo code FFP500 at jeffbanks.bet. And by BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Our listeners get 10% off your first month. So give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/FURLONG.
Welcome to the Final Furlong podcast. I'm Emmet Kennedy. Great to have your company as we talk about the upcoming National Hunt season in the company of the Weatherbys Cheltenham Festival Betting Guide author and, more importantly, Jumpers to Follow author, which we've got a £3 discount code for you, exclusive for Final Furlong podcast listeners. Paul Ferguson, welcome back to the show.
That's good to be back.
£3 off the print copy, £3 off the digital copy, £3 off the print and digital bundle. You can order your copy now of the Weatherbys Paul Ferguson Jumpers to Follow guide. It is essential reading. Everybody says it. It is the best preview. Bucket loads of winners to come for you. We're going to talk about chasers to follow for the new season, or at least the divisions to look at. The 2 mile chase is what we're going to look at first of all. And while it's not all about Cheltenham, we're going to use the betting for the champion chase as a prism and a guide to take us through. So Jeff Banks goes 7-2 about Jonbon. I really wanted this horse to go up and trip, but anyway, it looks like he's probably going to stay at the 2 mile division. 7-2 for Nicky Henderson for the champion chase. Gaelic Warrior. Arkle winners have got a fantastic record. Will he be going this route or will he be going up and trip? 4-1. El Fabiolo. Oof. 5-1 is jumping fell to pieces. And dual winner, Energumene, who will be back this season. Can he do a Moscow Flyer and win it at a double figure age? A 9-1 shot. And Marine Nationale, who Barry Connell is making some bullish noises about, a 14-1 shot. That's the betting with Jeff Banks Bet as things stand. Paul, is Jonbon the leading player for you in the champion chase division?
I suppose he has to be, really, just based on the fact that he won the celebration chase and got the better of El Fabiolo in the jumping department of Sandown. But we do know that Sandown is Jonbon's track. He is unbeatable pretty much around there now, which seems to be the case. So after Aintree, I was like you, I'd long been of the opinion I wanted to see him over at least an intermediate trip. He won at Aintree, and possibly you might have been thinking that the King George might have been his mid-season target, but then having dropped back in trip and successfully won celebration chase, I think it's blatantly obvious that the first protocol or the first main target for him should be the Tingle Creek. I would have thought at Sandown in December. I think Nicky said that he had quite a few public there last week for racing, National Horse Racing Week, and I think it was announced that the Schlare chase will be a starting point again, as it was last year. One thing I would say with Jonbon is his record at Cheltenham. He's only won once in that Schlare chase last season from 4 starts. Obviously, he didn't take his chance in the champion chase last season. He was pulled out on the basis of some of Nicky's not running particularly well on the first day. And as you say, he stepped up in trip, but then appreciated the drop back, and it certainly wasn't an inconvenience to him. So yeah, I don't see him going up to 3 miles like I did think was possible. I think he will head down this route. At this stage, he probably does deserve to be favourite, because there's probably a lot of question marks over when we come to Gaelic Warrior where he will go trip wise. There's certainly question marks about El Fabiolo, possibly more so in the jumping department. He'd made a couple of mistakes before he parted company with Paul Townend fairly early in the champion chase, and then he wasn't as fluent around Sandown as Jonbon. I'd say that maybe a small possibility El Fabiolo could step up to 2.5 miles at some stage. He's always shaped to me like he will get that trip, so that'd be interesting. I would imagine that he will start off as usual at Cork over the minimum trip, and they might take it from there. But at some stage, I wouldn't mind seeing El Fabiolo over 2.5 as well. As you say, what were the novices coming through last year in the 2 mile division? Gaelic Warrior ran out a comfortable winner of the Arkle. If he does go up in trip, can we see those in behind really making an impact? You'd probably say Marine Nationale was the one from the novices who has the ability maybe to mix it at this level, but we've only actually ever seen him win once over fences and race twice over fences in his career last season. So it'll be interesting. Hopefully he comes back and delivers on his novice hurdle form from the season before, because he is a horse with undoubted ability for me.
2 mile chase division really badly missed Energumene last year. He
It
would
does, yeah.
have absolutely murdered that lot in the champion chase had he lined up. And it
Yeah.
would have been very
Well,
interesting to
Captain
see who Paul Townend would have chosen to ride as well. But you could also make the argument that if in an alternate reality Nicky Henderson's horses were all thriving, Jonbon wins the champion chase because of how it worked out. If in an alternate reality JP decided, no, actually we'll go with Dino Blue and not go for the mare's chase, that she would have won it because it fell apart. And I don't know. I really don't. It was a terrible running of the champion chase once El Fabiolo stops.
No disrespect to Captain Guinness, he's been a great horse to his owners and Henry over the years, but his record, that was his only win in 15 starts in Grade 1 company, which kind of highlights in no uncertain terms that he does tend to be vulnerable at the top level. And I would say he's 9 now, isn't he, turning 10? I would think he would certainly be vulnerable come the spring to a younger and improving type, or even, like you say, Energumene. For me, out of all the horses we touched on, Energumene is the most talented and has been the best 2-mile chaser in recent years. The question with him is the length of time off. Willie has been able to bring horses back. We've seen that previously. I don't think that's a doubt, but he'll be 11 by the time the champion chase comes around in March. It would take a big ask, but if he's anywhere near his best, he's the one to beat in the division for me. He's an 11-year-old by then. It's not easy, like you say. It's Moscow Flyers, probably the last elder winner of the race.
Well, he was 11 when he won the champion chase, and he was regaining his title as well. I agree with you. I think if Energumene comes back and he's in rude shape, and it'll be very interesting to see what they do, because he used to start out in the hilly way, and then El Fabiolo took his place. I think El Fabiolo is overpriced. I don't know what happened in the champion chase. I guess there was always a possibility that he was going to fluff his lines like that.
And people make a lot of his jumping. He as a novice, he made mistakes, but it didn't seem to check his momentum in any way. And he even the first half of last season, I didn't think he was too bad at Sandown. It was just Sandown's a difficult track, I think, for some horses as well. Some horses don't take to it and find it more difficult to, especially a big horse.
Much stiffer test of jumping than Cheltenham.
Yeah.
And the ground was good to firm that day, or at least it was firm ground that day. He might not have liked that at all.
Again, he might not have done, and that's probably an important point as well. I think made over the years hasn't been so much, but Aidan Coleman was pretty adamant when he used to talk about Jonbon that he thought he was a better horse on better ground. So when you factor those things in, possibly has been maybe slightly overlooked in the market, but so just question marks hanging over the top 4 really in terms of natural ability for me over the past few years. And Energumene's probably been the best 2-mile chaser we've seen.
Yeah, I agree. And it's only in his absence that you realise just how special he was, because I think that people can look at his second champion chase where he beats Captain Guinness and go, nothing race. Edward Stone's bombed out, and then Captain Guinness comes out and wins the champion chase a season later. If Energumene is still that horse, he's the one they all have to beat. But I think there is 6-1 available about El Fabiolo, and I think that's a very, very decent price. I think El Fabiolo should be 4s, which is the position Gaelic Warrior has, because I don't think Gaelic Warrior is going to go down this route. And we can move on to that now as we bring in the Ryanair / King George / Gold Cup division. So Jeff Banks goes 4-1 Jonbon for the Ryanair. This is the division I wanted him to run in last year. It's all academic because Nicky's horses were terrible when it came to Cheltenham. And we shall see how Jonbon gets on this season. Gaelic Warrior, the Arkle winner, is a 6-1 shot. El Fabiolo's 8s for the Ryanair. Banbridge, similar price, very ground dependent. Etait Temps on the cover of Paul's Jumpers to Follow book. Could he be reigning supreme over the intermediate trip at Cheltenham? Does he even like Cheltenham? He's a 10-1 shot. Protektorat, the defending champion, is 10s as well. So for the intermediate division, who's the horse that really stands out to you right now? Yeah,
again, it's quite difficult because you say Etait Temps probably, I thought, beat Ginny's Destiny in Grade, or maybe they were slightly over the top after long seat. They were quite... in this day and age, quite vigorously campaigned last year. I'd say Ginny's Destiny and Grey Dawn. Now he had a bit of a ding-dong battle at Cheltenham, so he might have done them for pace at Aintree. I think he was the speedier horse of the 3, and I certainly think Ginny's Destiny, I would hope he might start off or certainly run in the Paddy Power off top weight or thereabouts, top mark of 155. I think that race is ideal for him. Grey Dawn, and certainly goes up in trip. I think he might start off over 2.5 as a prep run for the Betfair Chase. But we can get onto that when we talk about 3-milers. So I think even though those two were contesting the better 2.5-mile novice chases in England last year, they'll be going up in trip in time. Etait Temps probably, if he is going to land another grade one, probably needs to step up again or step back up to an intermediate trip. He obviously dropped back to 2 miles of Punchestown, didn't he, of course. Found the 50 would be one who could go up in distance. I would have thought this year, again, he started off last year over 2.5 and then was obviously competitive over 2 miles, won at Aintree. Just a narrow beating of Master Chewy is that kind of form. Going to stand up in open company. Time will tell in that regard. One thing with the Etait Temps, like you touched upon in the introduction there, is he really a Cheltenham horse, or does he want a flat track? His record at Leopardstown is much better than anywhere else, and his record at Cheltenham stands that he was 5th in the Triumph, 5th in the Supreme, and 3rd in last year's Arkle. He just doesn't seem to quite carry his form over to Cheltenham. Obviously, travelling isn't an issue with him because he came out and won impressively at Aintree, as we saw. So, say, track like Aintree would be perfect for him.
Do you think
possibly we'd see him back?
I say this... I'm trying to figure out how to word this. I say this with the greatest respect. Do you think that Paul Townend is a big factor? Danny is absolutely exceptional at Leopardstown. Paul is exceptional everywhere, particularly at Cheltenham. Do you think that would have a change in factor for Etait Temps?
I wouldn't. I wouldn't personally have looked at it like that. It wouldn't be something I'd be concerned about. Having Danny on his back. I just think maybe Cheltenham doesn't suit him. It is the case with some horses. His form figures are certainly leaning to suggest that to you. As I say, the way he won at Aintree, I would think the Melon Chase would probably be an ideal spring target for Etait Temps, who sculled around Aintree and picked off those more staying types in good fashion. I say Gaelic Warrior could enter any equation, really. We should have probably touched on him a little bit more when we were talking about the Champion Chase, because, as you say, Arkle winners do have a great record in it. The way he won the Arkle, you would think he looked like a Champion Chaser, but when he was beaten at Punchestown, he looked like he wanted the trip again. I've always thought he's a staying type, a staying horse who just races quite keenly and likes to get on with it, which obviously he'll need to settle down if he's going to go back up to 3 miles, but he did win over 3 miles as a hurdler. For me, the King George just screams out as the obvious race for Gaelic Warrior, just back on a right-handed track. We know he does favour going that way around. I'd be happy to forgive him his Punchestown run. As we said last week, horses can get beat at Punchestown at the end of a long season. I think I would imagine that John Durkin would probably be his starting point. I imagine that'll be the starting point for a lot of Willie's as we get onto the stayers as well. But he doesn't seem to mind running several horses there. Can't imagine that he'd be ready for the second season chase at Down Royal, which isn't really a race that Willie looks to target. And so I would think that Gaelic Warrior might reappear in the John Durkin, and if all went well there for me, he'd be the one I'd be looking towards for the King George. And I think double figure price, obviously you're guessing who will turn up, but you might get some indication as well in the early part of the season if Willie is really targeting the British Trainers Championship. And if that is the case, something like Boxing Day, I would imagine he would send horses over for all 3 grade ones.
I would be amazed if Willie Mullins is not sending a very strong team over to Kempton for the King George. If Ballyburn does stay over hurdles, he might very well end up in the Christmas hurdle at Kempton, which would see him taking on Constitution Hill, which would be a fascinating clash. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves, shall we? But he's going to have something for the Cotto Star. He's probably going to have something to chase on Constitution Hill in the Christmas hurdle. The Final Furlong podcast is proudly brought to you by Jeff Banks Bet, where tradition meets cutting-edge technology, and with major flat racing festivals on the horizon and the new jump season about to kick off properly, it's time to leave behind the corporate bookmakers who don't value your loyalty. At this point, you've got to be fed up of their restrictions, endless affordability checks, and losing out on incentives just because you dare to win a bet. Jeff is the bookmaker fighting for your right to bet, giving you the freedom to enjoy British and Irish racing the way it should be, and you can watch all that racing on the Jeff Banks Bet app. So say goodbye to bookies who want you to lose your hard-earned money on their online casinos, and say yes to unbeatable odds and a bookmaker that truly values your custom, Jeff Banks Bet. Final Furlong podcast listeners who sign up to Jeff Banks online using the promo code FFP500 can get 10% of any net losses returned as cash after your first month of betting up to £500. It's an offer you won't see anywhere else. Visit jeffbanks.bet today and enter promo code FFP500 and join the excitement. That's jeffbanks.bet using promo code FFP 500 because your betting experience deserves more. And he'll definitely have something for the King George. The betting that Jeff Banks Bet has provided us with is Etait Francais, the devastating winner of the Cotto Star Novice Chase last season and then blew out when we last saw him. We're going to see him again very soon, though, and apparently he's back to full health. 5-1, Fastorslow. I love this horse. 6s. You'd imagine Kempton would really suit him. Gaelic Warrior, 6-1. Gerri Colombe, 7s. Fastorslow, an 8-1 shot. Jonbon is the same price. Hewick, who will train him as he bids to defend his crown. Be a certain hint of irony if he was handed to Willie Mullins temporarily and then brought back to Shark Hanlon. That's worked out well in the past, by the way. Gaelic Warrior improved dramatically for the switch to Willie. 14s, Protektorat is a similar price, and Brave Man's Game, yeah, whatever. 16-1. On Gaelic Warrior, there's 2 major blips on his CV. A spectacular blowout at the DRF, and then I think that the defeat at Punchestown is easier to excuse.
Yeah.
It became a really speed test that day, and it probably just didn't suit him against a nippy horse like Etait Temps. But he had beaten Etait Temps very comfortably at Christmas in the Limerick 2.5 mile grade 1. Like, he beat him with disdain, and then Patrick Mullins was bollocking Danny afterwards in that famous incident. But they are 2 things that Etait Francais is obviously blown out in France as well. They're 2 horses that are hugely exciting, but there's a question mark hanging over both of them. What is that question mark for you with Gaelic Warrior?
Yeah, it's just, I'd say, as I said, Punchestown, I think you can forgive him coming back. Sure, 2 miles on quicker ground. I'd judge him more on, I'd say that beating of Etait Temps at Limerick is his true form. He was really good at Cheltenham in the Arkle, despite shifting to his right. I just think he was so far superior to them in terms of ability that he was able to get away with it. If he could put that kind of performance up, obviously there's a possibility that he could end up down the champion chase route. But I would think that possibly, if you're talking Cheltenham targets, maybe the Ryanair would be the race for him. But for me, I would gear the season round. For me, I've always thought he's much better on a right-handed track, as most people do. And for me, I would be gearing certainly the first half of the season round, starting off in the John Durkin and going to Kempton. Fastorslow, obviously, top 3. He's not. I can't imagine that Willie would run both of those in the same race at Christmas when there's other options at Christmas. So only one of them will travel over out, in my opinion. Etait Francais was really good.
Just on that, there'll be several options. There's the King George, obviously. There's the Savills Chase. There's the other Savills Chase in Tramore, which from memory, Willie didn't really target last year.
No, New Year's Day, isn't it, that one?
Yeah, it's obviously a race he's won with Album Photo and a number of other horses as well, but I don't think
I suppose if Fastorslow, Gaelic Warrior, Galopin Des Champs all come out and Everton's Rosie, I suppose 2 of them, unless one of them does go to Tramore, 2 of them are going to have to clash if they run over Christmas, aren't they, I suppose so. Maybe would you want 2 travelling rather than 1?
Probably more likely that Fastorslow would take on Galopin Des Champs in the Savills, or Gaelic Warrior takes him. The King George, I think Fastorslow is a really interesting horse for the King George, and it's a different owner, different connections. But Gaelic Warrior just looks tailor made for the King George.
Yeah, it does to me. Like at the time, halfway through last season, say at Christmas time, he'd won impressively at Limerick. Etait Francais had bolted up in the Feltham. And at the time, it looked like, God, you wouldn't mind seeing them 2 come back and clash against each other in next year's King George. So hopefully that happens. You say Etait Francais, I think he's due to run at Auteuil next weekend. I think it is. Yeah. I'm sure I read that he's due to be out by the end of September. I would think they'd want to have another race before Kempton then. But yeah, certainly in the first half of last season, he looked like potentially a top class chaser as well. Track looked ideal for him. The other Irish trained horse who I think would be nicely suited to Kempton would be Fastorslow, because I certainly don't think.
Yes.
I don't think he's without speed. I think that the tactical nature of Kempton would really suit him. Whether that becomes an option, I'm not sure. Again, you would expect that he would be aimed at the John Durkin to begin with, having won it previously. So it'll be interesting to see, but that potentially has the makings of a really good race this year, the King George. So hopefully we get at least a couple of Irish travellers and we take it from there. But say for me, Gaelic Warrior would be the one. Like, you could see it on I don't know, what price did you say Jeff had him priced up at on odds check? He's got prices ranging from 7 to 2 to 10 to 1. So there's obviously a differing opinions with the odds compilers whether he will come and whether he will be campaigned over 3 miles.
Yeah, Jeff has him as joint second favourite, but at 6 to 1. Okay. Etait Temps is the thing that makes me a little bit nervous. That Cotto Star.
People are questioning the form, and I can get that probably wasn't the strongest race in behind. But just the way he took to the track and the fences, he's got that typical low French style of jumping, travels powerfully. Track obviously just looks absolutely ideal for him. I had to question why I know obviously it was down to the ownership that he was being targeted at the French Gold Cup, even though he was a novice last year, but just doesn't look like a horse who wants 3 miles 5, really, does he?
No.
He certainly doesn't scream like an out-and-out stayer or a plodder. Even listening to an interview with Noel George recently, and I think he even sounded lukewarm on the Gold Cup at Cheltenham this year, to be honest, which I know was originally the plan. After Kempton last year, it was like, we'll go, he's part owned by someone in France, someone in Britain, Richard Kelvin Hughes, obviously. He was going to go for the French Gold Cup last year. Cheltenham in 2025 didn't materialise, obviously, that he didn't get to the Grand Steep. So whether that's made them reevaluate the situation, but it didn't sound like Cheltenham was certainly the be all and end all, and it sounded like his season was geared around Kempton. I mean, with the way the French programme as well, he's probably been in training a little bit longer than the British horses, so he will probably be, and probably was, on Boxing Day last year at absolute peak fitness, having run as early as September in a novice chase, and will be getting to be the same this year. He's going to be out a good month or so before the other horses he's going to be facing in the King George. That could actually be quite pivotal at that time of year, because the British and Irish horse will probably be going there on the back of 1 run, maybe 2. Whereas he's going to have been in hard training since a fair bit earlier.
It's also entirely possible that Gaelic Warrior gets beaten on his comeback.
If he runs, if Fastorslow, Galopin Des Champs, and him, among others, all turn up in the John Durkin, there's a possibility. Yeah,
it might actually be likely that he gets beaten on his comeback.
That's why I can't see if Energumene's fit. If he's, I don't know when Willie's expecting to bring him back, whether it's in the first half of the season or what. But if him and El Fabiolo are fit, I can't really imagine Gaelic Warrior in a 2 mile race to begin with.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd say John Durkin just looks ideal for him, 2.5 right-handed track.
But the reason I'm saying he might get beaten first time up is that's 6 to 1 with Jeff Banks bet. I think that's a very fair price, and it is very easy to look at Etait Temps' Cotto Star novice chase form and go, well, he beat Hermes Alain and Kilbeg King. Like, does that really hold up? Hermes Alain, tragically, we lost after his next race. I think he was a real talent. I think there was a really, really talented racehorse, and
yeah, I do. Like, he'd shown it at Newbury first time out, and he
was very highly regarded as a hurdler. He was a really good winner of a Grade 1 early in his campaign. I remember talking to Harry Cobden about him. He didn't think much of him at all when he sat on him first, and was kind of surprised he won first time up under Briney. But then when he sat on him,
won on him over, and he actually ran over 2 mile 6 in a maiden hurdle at Stratford, I think, on one of those early Saturdays in the season which
Harry was surprised he won. I remember this conversation vividly. He was like, wait, what? But then when he sat on him again, he's like, it was a completely different horse. So that was a very talented horse, and Etait Temps just made bits of him that day. And I think your point about the French training program is a very good one as well, that he will be more further forward. But there is a chance that Etait Temps will be cut in price, because any kind of win at all, if he even wins by short ahead, they're going to cut him in price, because that's just how the corporate bookmakers work these days. Whereas Gaelic Warrior might be vulnerable in a John Durkin against Fastorslow. He might be vulnerable against something else in that race as well. And Katie Young was making the point around about this time last year on the final furlong. People are freaking out about Willie Mullins' horses getting beaten. Oh my God, they got beaten in Navan. They got beaten in Ferrios. She's like, this always happens. Like, they're slow into gear and then they kick and they go. Ballyburn got turned over on his debut. Factifile got beaten on his debut. Don't worry about it. Like, those horses will be ready for Christmas onwards. A little bit like Aidan O'Brien.
And I think last season was probably there was even more evidence of that, whether it was intentional but there seemed to be. I thought a few more of Willie's horses did tend to need the run last year, certainly the novices. and maybe the longevity in the season. Willie looks differently than other trainers. I think he just looks purely at punches down Cheltenham and works backwards, whereas some trainers want to get on with things nice and early. It'd be interesting to see how things in that regard pan out in the early parts of the season. Like I say, I think Gaelic Warrior is probably only those kind of prices because people don't know if he'll turn up. If you guarantee Gaelic Warrior would run, I would have him as favourites for the King George.
I would too. But I think that you make a very good point, though. Willie has two very strong bullets to fire for the champion chase. In El Fabiolo, where there's a point to prove with him, and Energumene, who probably would have won had he stayed fit last year. So both of those horses will provide, and they're both representing different connections. Does Rich Ritchie strike you as the guy who wants to win the champion chase or the King George and the Gold Cup? He strikes me as the guy who wants to win those staying races. And I think it worked out that he ended up in the Arkle, and he just, in hindsight, he was just the better horse that day, and he's blown everything away. He had the superior form. His form, I think, is better than everything in the King George's. It might just suit Est Francais that day. That day might just suit. I think Vautour was a better horse than Q-Card, but Q-Card was better prepared and in a better state for the King George than Vautour was. And it might be a similar thing this time around. But that 6-1 is tempting to me, except for the fact that I have a sneaky feeling he might get turned over first time out, in which case Jeff goes 10s and then we strike. Take all Jeff's money. Anybody else for the King George that we should mention before we move on?
I don't think so, no. I think possibly, well, whether he's up to that level. I'd say if Ginny's Destiny was able to win a Paddy Power off 155, he'll obviously be looking at races like that. And Harry mentioned that in his column in the book that he thinks he wouldn't be surprised to him if he ended up in King George. At the minute, he hasn't won a Grade 1, so he does need to take that step up in class. So, but he's a horse who could end up contesting that if he were to go and win a Paddy Power first time out. You say he'd be rating the 160s then, so that would be the likely way to go. And I think connections of him do want to step up in distance. In terms of the Ryanair, and for going back, I know we're covering like the intermediate-ish distances. Last year's front three wage, Protektorat was 9, and he'd be 2 10-year-olds. That those three are obviously going to be 10, 11, 11 by next year. So you kind of are looking and hoping for a fresh influx of contenders there. You say Gaelic Warrior, Jonbon's unlikely, heads the betting, doesn't he? He's unlikely to go there unless something goes wrong, if you're listening to Nicky's plans. Gaelic Warrior could end up anywhere. El Fabiolo, much shorter price in the champion chase. So again, it looks a really open betting heat there, and you're probably looking for something to come through. Say one a complete dark horse again, probably in the Marine Nationale camp, almost in terms of they'll come out and prove it, and he probably got to come out and prove the well-being. Was also impressed me on when Winners Beginners Chase last year was Indiana Dream for JP and Willie Mullins.
Soft ground is vital to him, but he's very exciting.
Yeah. But he's obviously clearly. I don't think he can't be the easiest horse to train. He won his maiden hurdle on, I think it was New Year's Day in January 2023.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And then he returned. But that Beginners Chase at Nace last year when he won, he beat St. Felician. Hidden Valley Lake was in behind. Was beaten at the time when he come down. So it looked a decent race at the time, and he beat them fairly bloodless. Obviously, he's a horse who's been difficult to keep sound since he's arrived at Willie's, but I'd say there's probably a lot of natural ability in there. It might well be that he needs soft ground because you say he's only run on soft or heavy to date. But if we get to see him more this year,
third in the Coral Cup, and he absolutely smashed him to pieces.
Yeah, I just remember the time he was also who probably one of the most striking winners of a beginners or novice chase in the first half of last season. It was a shame we didn't see him again, but he was ruled out for the season. But to say no, I haven't heard anything of his well-being at the minute. So, but he's still only 6 and open to any amount of improvement. It might be difficult to place in the first half of the season if he is back, because obviously he's no longer a novice and he's got limited experience, not just in terms of chasing, but just in general. He's pretty limited in the experience department. But you think he's a horse with a lot of ability. He'd be one I'd be looking forward to seeing, hopefully, he gets a bit of a clear run and we get to see him a bit more this season.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky for him because they're going to need soft ground. That was heavy when he won his beginners, or at least the novice chase. And the talk afterwards was like soft ground is vital to him, and Cheltenham was never on the agenda for him before he ended up being ruled out anyway. And he does lack experience, but he's a super talent. Indiana Dream. Very much want to keep on side.
You'd imagine like domestic graded races, him like there should be options for him anyway, shouldn't there? But say early on in the season it might just be a little bit difficult in terms of experience, but wouldn't be surprised to see him pick up a graded race at some stage anyway.
Yeah, he might. John Durkin would be a little bit too much of a task for him.
Yeah, straight into the grade one. Yeah. I was thinking maybe if he can find a conditions race and then something like maybe like the Horse and Jockey or something, the old Kinloch Bray in the second half of the season might be an option. Maybe try and build him up gradually, but just in terms of visual impression, last year he was pretty striking on that chase debut.
He's a very exciting horse and one I'm very much looking forward to. Something did just occur to me, Paul. Are we not missing the blindingly obvious here? There is a horse screaming to be backed. Turned out he's not Don Poli 2.0, Don Slowly. But they're not going to want to take on Galopin Des Champs, and GDC won't come to the King George. And they flirted with the idea of coming to the King George last year. Gordon's horses will be in flying form at the time. They always are at Christmas. Gerri Colombe is 7-1 for the King George. He'd set the standard if he turned up.
Yeah, he probably would. I just think of like the likes of Etait Temps, and Gaelic Warrior would have a bit more natural pace for me. If one of those was to turn up around Kempton, I'd personally probably favour either of those rather than the out-and-out stayer.
See, I would have said that before Aintree. I thought he showed a really powerful turn of foot that day, and I thought he ended up being a very, very good winner.
It was still stamina that won him in the end, I thought, though. The end of the day at Aintree, I thought the ground come right for him, didn't it, again? And
you need to stay to win the King George, though. You are right, it was
you
soft
do,
ground.
Yeah. You do. I think the ground's come right for him at Aintree the past 2 years, so I'd imagine he'd be ready early for Down Royal again. No reason why not. Gordon likes to target the meeting. I would think that he would be, and then his probably main spring target will end up being back at Aintree. I would have thought. Not that he's going to bypass the Gold Cup, but obviously he's 2 from 2 the past 2 years, so you'd look to come back to Liverpool, I would have thought.
I'd say the King George would be on the agenda for him because they're going to want to
win.
It's quite possible. They're going to want to win another Grade 1 with him. They can do it. They might go Betfair Chase, maybe. I doubt it, though. That race is falling apart, really. No one cares about that race anymore. It's quite
close to the Down Royal, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the calendar this year, but
nobody cares about it anymore, Paul. It's just that race is dying. Q becomes the greatest 3 mile staying chase this season. I don't think it will, though. But if he wins in Down Royal and Gordon says straight after, King George next, he's second favourite at least, straight away. He might even be favourite for it. Especially if Etait Francais bombs out again. And if Gaelic Warrior does get turned over in the John Durkin, that's 7-1. Could look intriguing.
Yeah, fair point. I think he should have probably actually, to give him credit, given the race that he ran in the Gold Cup, his performance at Aintree probably deserves a bit marking up slightly because it's not easy to run well in the Gold Cup and then bounce out and win the bowl at Aintree. Yeah. You've seen horses beaten in it numerous times. I think Exotic Dancer finished second and then won it, but we have seen a lot of horses have hard races at Cheltenham and then be beaten at Aintree subsequently. He's probably better judged than really as on that Gold Cup form. So he probably would set standard. Again, we're kind of guessing whether who or what ends up in a couple of months' time. But he said there was a strong hint last year, wasn't there, that it was being considered. So maybe they will avoid taking on Galopin Des Champs around Leopardstown and travel over. Be interesting to see. Would you want to travel 3 times though in the space of then, if they're intended on going Cheltenham Aintree as well?
Have horse will travel.
Something else. Have horse will travel, yeah.
Do it, Gordon. Gerri Colombe for the King George. Let's go. This is a paid advertisement from BetterHelp Therapy Online. What are your self-care non-negotiables? Maybe you never skip leg day or therapy day. When your schedule is packed with kids' activities, big work projects, and more, it's easy to let your priorities slip. Even when we know what makes us happy, it's hard to make time for it. But when you feel like you've no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. If you've ever been in therapy, then like me, you know how beneficial it can be. But it's not just for those who've experienced major trauma. It's helpful for learning positive coping skills and setting boundaries. Therapy empowers you to be the best version of yourself. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a registered therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. With almost 5,000 therapists in the UK already, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a wide variety of expertise. Visit betterhelp.com/furlong today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/furlong. This is a paid advertisement by BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/furlong to get 10% off your first month and get on your way to being your best self. Gold Cup. The defending champion, Galopin Des Champs. GDC is the 3-1 favourite to become the first horse since Best Mate to win 3 Gold Cups. Can we get Simon Holt on commentary for that? That'd be epic. 3-1 with Jeff Banks bet. Fact to File, his stable companion. The Brown Advisory winner is the 4-1 second favourite. Fastorslow. Who knows what would have happened had he not unseated. I don't think he would have won, but he would have gone close. 8-1. Gerri Colombe, 12's last year's runner-up. I know the way you're thinking. Handicap to a Grade 1 winner, 12-1. Grey Dawning, the Ryanair winner, 16's. Spillane's Tower is the same price, as is the Grand National winner, Am Maximus, as is Corbetts Cross, and Est Francais. 20s, proceed with caution with him. Grangeclare West, another fascinating one too. He had some really good form early in the season. Probably could have touched on him. I wouldn't surprise me if he could be if all's okay with him again. Don't know. I haven't heard anything in that regard. But if he does make it back to the track, wouldn't surprise me if he ended up a Ryanair horse over a Gold Cup horse, because I think being ridden quite positively over that sort of trip is pretty much ideal for him. I think he's got enough form over 2.5, and I think the thing with him last year was there was always that question mark that he'd won his maiden hurdle and he disappointed, and then he came back later in the year. Does he need to be fresh? Can he back up the performance? But he was good on debut, on his chase debut, and he was good second time out at over 3 miles over Christmas. But I think he does like to get on with him. I wouldn't say he was necessarily a Gold Cup horse, or whether he really needs that extended trip. So again, he's one hopefully we will see back on track like Indiana Dream, and we get to see him a bit more this year, but there's plenty of untapped potential with him, and I say he could be the one for me who just develops it more into a Ryanair type than a Gold Cup type. 16-1 for the Ryanair chase with Jeff Banks bet. Bear in mind he's a horse who's coming back from an injury, but he should be fine.
Again, yeah. Is he another one who's going to be in the John Dirk? John Dirkin's going to be some race, isn't it?
That's going to be
just have it at Willie's, and then send Fastorslow around to take them on.
They would have saved so much time and they could have shown the Irish Champion Stakes on ITV if they'd just run the St. Ledger at Ballydoyle. Spare the 15-minute build-up. Spare us all your nonsense of that crap. Just run it in the Ballydoyle Gallops and hand the trophy to Aidan. Decide which horse wins it afterwards. They can just do the same for the John Durkin, except of course Fastorslow will have to be rocking up as well, and then taking the trophy from close.
Yeah, maybe. To be fair, maybe even Spillane's Tower. His record, the Punchestown, would suggest that would be a good option for him. I hope one of these horses, a couple of them maybe from last year's novices, are ready early for that second season chase at Down Royal, because it gives them an opportunity before being forced into that open company. Jimmy Mangum didn't really spare Spillane's Tower last year. I think he ran 7 times, didn't he? Which was good to see. So maybe he'll be ready early, and could be one for Down Royal as a stepping stone to Punchestown. But there's plenty of talent coming through in this division. Certainly more in this division from last year's novices than in the 2 mile division, I would say.
Yeah, I was really taken with Spillane's Tower last year. Was it the Punchestown Grade 3? I remember saying to my friend, that's a Gold Cup horse for next season, and he was like, nah.
Yeah, when he beat Blood Destiny.
Yeah, and then Blood Destiny reversed, got his revenge, and my friend Jim sent me a WhatsApp going, "See, I told you," and he was very quiet after his wins at Ferry House and Punchestown. He's a really interesting horse for this season, and he could be a Ryanair horse, but you would hope for the Mangans that he's going to be a Gold Cup horse.
Yeah, I just can't really get a gauge at the minute. He's one I couldn't bracket into which division I think he'll end up in. I thought Monty Starr might have outstayed him at the end of a long season at Punchestown, but he was really good to do that. I'd say on 7th start, first start of 3 miles, opens up obviously plenty more options and opportunities for him. He's probably also you won't see travel until Cheltenham at the very first, and think they don't think the man can see him overly fussed on having to come to England for anything. They think they're happy to pick up graded races on home soil, but yeah, it's nice to see. With no disrespect to refer to them as a smaller yard, but it's nice to see also visibility with a trainer like Jimmy Mangan. To be honest,
Do you think he is more of a Gold Cup horse? Did Punchestown prove that is what he is?
I don't think he's short of speed though. So I don't know. I'm still not. I'd probably be sitting on the fence with him at the minute. To be honest, I think Punchestown obviously suits him well. His record there shows that. So I expect to see him back there again this year. At the minute, I don't know. I think he wouldn't be out of place in a race over the Ryanair trip. You know, and it'd be interesting to see if he does go to the John Durkin. I'd like to have seen him have a run under his belt and be spot on for it, and then it should give us a good gauge as to whether he's up to really mixing it with the best of them over 2.5, or does he need to go back up to 3 miles? I just think he's going to be one of them. I think he's probably one of them versatile horses who's just going to be a very good horse, and you'll see him win races over a variation of distances, to be honest.
Yeah, I think he's a very nice horse and a very exciting prospect for the season. I don't think he's.
I don't know he's a Gold Cup. Yeah,
I don't know either, and I don't know that he's good enough. And I think you look back at Fairyhouse, he beats Tactical Move, Blood Destiny, who he kept matching with and who'd beat him earlier. The Company's great, Zana here. These are all right horses. And then he beats a good yardstick in Monty Starr, but Monty Starr was beaten further by Fact to File. 3-card Bragg, I think he's really interesting for the National and Chase this season as a second season novice. Sandor Clegane, I mean, he's not a grade 1 horse, really.
You'll probably latch.
American Mike blew out that day.
Yeah, you could latch a couple of them onto Fact to File as well when we get to talk to him. Maybe his form isn't quite as strong as people think, but Spillane's Town beating Monty Starr. Monty Starr's also, like, just in general, he more as a top-end handicapper rather than like a Gold Cup horse, personally. I'd love to see him being aimed at Aintree. I think the Grand National will be tailor-made for him, the way he jumps. Yeah. Classy second season, young, improving horse. He's probably got the profile of a modern-day national horse. I know there's probably plenty of races over in Ireland for him, but I'd be looking to give him an entry at Newbury from the Coral Gold Cup. I think that 3 mile 2 around there on a flat track would be ideal for Monty Starr. So
shout. There are going to be people who think that because he's Henry de Bromhead and Henry's record with Chasers is just incredible, and he'll have the assistance of Rachel Blackmore as well, that he could be end up being a dark horse for the Gold Cup. Do you see that?
Yeah, it's probably not going to be far off it, I wouldn't think. But I just see him I think whether he's just that top end handicapper rather than genuine grade 1 horse. It's probably not, say, in the Gold Cup, in the Grand National, nowadays, there's probably not that much difference between a horse you want as being a graded horse, as Am Maximus shown last year. I think Am Maximus will struggle in open company, personally. I don't see him making an impact really in the Gold Cup division, personally, but and likewise, I know the way you're thinking. For me, I know he won his grade 1 at Ancient Novice Chase, but more of a potential long-term national type than Gold Cup type for me.
There is betting with one firm. They're not a sponsor, so they don't get mentioned. But one firm is going 14s Monty Starr for the Coral, or the Hennessy, as it was once known.
Hennessy, there you go.
Were he to turn up there, yeah, exactly. You could just call it the Coral Hennessy, but that probably wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, to be fair, and just be free advertising for everyone's favourite cognac. Grey Dawning, the last Grade 1 winner of the Turners, the only Grade 1 novice chase winner for Britain at Cheltenham, and then they get rid of its Grade 1 status. I can forgive his defeat at Aintree. He'd had a long season. He'd had a hard race at Cheltenham. I thought he was very, very good that day, and stepping up a trip is going to help him. There's also not much between him, Fact to File, I Know the Way You're Thinking, and Corbetts Cross on time form, and he's right up there as one of the best. I think he actually might be he's one of the highest raters anyway, for sure. I'll double check that in a second. What do you make of his prospects in the Staying Chase division this season? And what campaign do you expect Dan to give him?
Yeah, and I think like going back to scratch, people who've read Jumpers to Follow for the past couple of years will know that I've long been a fan of his. In fact, I was on a Weatherbys Cheltenham preview with Dan Skelton 2 or 3 years back, and I think we were in between races, and they asked, did we want to ask any questions, and I asked about Grey Dawn, and who just won a bumper at Weatherby. I think he looked a bit stunned that, that I was talking about a horse who just won a bumper at Weatherby and not one of the horses to go to Cheltenham. But you could tell even as at that early stage that he clearly held the horse in high regard, and he's built him up gradually. He didn't really give him a hard season as a novice early. He was safe for Aintree. Unfortunately, he came down in the Sefton. And again, he needed the run last year, first time out on a chase debut, as he did the year before. He was beating the maiden hurdle at Aintree first time. So I think that's something to bear in mind with Grey Dawn, and he's quite a big, maybe he's a big stuffy horse, but I think a run is needed for him. So wouldn't be surprised to see him turn up somewhere in the build up to Haydock. Maybe I know that Colin Parker was mentioned as a possible intermediate chase at Carlisle. Could go there. So and then I wouldn't think if he was beaten again, it wouldn't be the end of the world looking at his form figures. So I think the Betfair Chase will definitely be his primary target of the season. That's where we'll see him. Probably, especially if Willie doesn't send anything over, probably take a bit of beating in the Betfair at Haydock. I would have thought he won at the meeting last year in the graduation chases where he got off the mark of a fence the second time out. So with a run under his belt, he's probably going to be the one to beat at Haydock. After that, I'm not sure where he'll go. I don't think he's Kenton horse. I don't think we'll see him in the King George. So possibly we'll see him having his prep run somewhere in January. Or even we've seen Dan do it before, go fresh, whether you'd want to go, I'm sure you'd want to be seeing him run again between the Betfair Chase and the Gold Cup, but I can understand why, and I think he's probably right that he is the shortest price British trained runner. I think he's the obvious one from this side of the RFC who could make an impact. As I say, there wasn't as much between him and Ginny's Destiny last year. They clashed a few times throughout the season. For me, Grey Dawn, and once they go up and trip, I think Grey Dawn will probably confirm his superiority. I think he is the one that can take the step up. Whereas for me, Ginny's Destiny, as I said earlier, I think like the Paddy Power will be ideal for him, and he'll end up contesting races then over 3 miles. But I think he's got more of a bridge to gap personally than Grey Dawn.
I'm going to give you the time form ratings for the chasers. Galopin Des Champs is 179. Fastorslow is 173. Gerri Colombe is 172. Monty Star 156. I know the way you're thinking 158p. Corbetts Cross 164.
Corbetts Cross he was given the chance to show himself a bit more by running well in the bowl against Gerri Colombe, wasn't he? So that's probably why he's the highest, because he's had the opportunity against open company at Aintree rather than wasn't restricted to novice company last year.
Yeah, he was 156 plus for Cheltenham. It's 164 now for him, but you are right. He got the opportunity to showcase what he can do in open company. Grangeclare West is 159p. Etait Francais 157. Grey Dawning's 160. Do you agree with that?
Certainly. How far do they have him off Galopin Des Champs? Sorry. £19.
GDC is miles clear of everything. Yeah, he's 179.
Yeah.
But that would make him one of the best novice chasers of last season.
Well, he was, wasn't he? He won the turn. I'd say he was probably over the top at Aintree and better judged on earlier form. As I say, I think he probably won't have I don't think he'll have as busy a campaign. I think Dan will be mindful of that. I think the Betfair, to use a phrase that I don't really like, Betfair will be his Gold Cup in the first half of the season. And then how he gets to Cheltenham, I'm not sure. Protektorat used the Cheltenham race on trials day. Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, and that's moved this year.
Yeah, it's going to be a Windsor, isn't it?
I did think that the Fleur de Lis, that's a possible. Protektorat used that last year, having the year before running the Cotswold chase on trials day. So I think that's kind of getting a bit close. Dan likes to give them a bit of a break out of Cheltenham, usually, just looking at how he targets horses. So possibly at Windsor would be the option for Grey Dawn. But if they say, I think Betfair Chase is definitely his best chance of winning the Grade 1 this season.
I would agree with that. And I like the horse an awful lot. I think he's a cracking chaser. Just on the time form rankings before we move on. If Etait Temps is 157, Grangeclare West is 159p, Grey Dawning is 160, what time form rating does Gaelic Warrior have?
Don't know if you got a squiggle next to him.
No squiggle and no P.
No P. 165.
Close. 169.
What have they got? What do they rate for under 50?
Oh, now you're asking me. I have this. Please hold caller. Your call is very important to us at Final Furlong Podcast Towers. I'm pretty certain I actually closed that off. I remember even saying, why did I close that off? Found to 50s. Time form rating is 158. It's game of opinions.
That's all it is. That's all it is.
I know the way you're thinking, Paul.
You know the way I'm thinking about those ratings. Or
what do you expect from him this season?
Yeah, as I said, I still think at the minute he still, for me, still kind of falls in the category of wouldn't be a surprise if he was a Grand National or stand lineup. He's probably going to be rated a bit too highly now, is the only thing. Or he's going to need to be performing up to Am Maximus levels. Which is possible. It's possible that I know the way that you're thinking's pitched in against all these Grade 1 horses in his first couple of runs this season. I just think he's got a massive bridge to gap as well. If RJP is an officer, I think Factophile stands out as a potential Gold Cup horse. You're talking about 4 really good novices last year with Corbetts Cross, Spillane's Tower. I know the way you're thinking, but I think the market's right in terms of the Gold Cup alone. I think Factophile is the one that could be the Gold Cup horse out of the quartet.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree that he could be the Gold Cup horse. I wonder if Corbetts Cross is the Grand National horse. I wonder if that's the reason.
It's possible, yeah. Maybe he'd need to brush up his jumpers. But so would I know the way you're thinking. To be fair, he jumped poorly at the start of the Kid Muir.
Does he?
And just shows.
Does he? They're not even fences anymore. They're glorified hurdles.
Just in general terms of them stepping out of novice company, they need to brush up the jumping because I know the way you're thinking. Found himself quite far back by virtue of making a mistake at the first and possibly the second. I think in the Kid Muir, and it was just he probably had so much in hand and was ridden by an absolute master in Derek O'Connor, who was willing to give him all the time in the world before picking off rivals. Thought that was a sensational ride really in the Kid Muir, to be honest, and to end up winning it as easily as he did. Was quite ridiculous. It was good to see him then take the step forward and win the Grade 1. But for me, still, he's got a bit of a mountain to climb with the likes of Galopin Des Champs and Fastorslow, really. Yeah,
I would agree with that. I have
and for all, sorry that we haven't got on to the top 3 in the bet yet, but for all that I've said, Factophile is the one who looks like he could make up his potential. Whether his form entitles him to be joint favourite with Galopin Des Champs, I'd question at this stage.
Well, let's talk about that because I love this horse, and it kills me that Katie, George, and I think Adam as well. It kills me that we were so right but so wrong. Right that he was going to win at Cheltenham. Bullish that he was going to win at Cheltenham. Spectacularly wrong about the race that he would turn up in. We won't have to worry about that this year.
If only they got rid of the turners last year.
Damn you, Cheltenham! All you had to do was turn into a handicap last year, you bastards. 10-1, 16-1, and 10-1. Oh God, what a sickener. Anyway, we got him right on DRF day, and he was a tasty price in what ended up being a match race. There was never a moment's sweat that day. But look, I love him. I think he's a fantastic racehorse. He's an incredible talent. 4-1 for the Gold Cup against the reigning dual champion who's going for 3 in a row. I don't know.
I'll say people will probably say the end of the season on different contrasts, but you can forgive Galopin Des Champs for being beaten at Punchestown. The same thing happened last year.
Punchestown's great. I love it. If you're using that you can use that as the basis for your form analysis for the upcoming season if you want to. But how many times have you seen a racehorse overperform at Punchestown and not replicate that at all the next season, or underperform at Punchestown and just blow it off and it doesn't mean anything?
Yeah,
I'm very prepared to forgive a bad performance there.
Yeah, I am, and even being beaten at the start of the season by Fastorslow is a Punchestown specialist and is more equipped, I think, nowadays for a slightly sharper test, which is surprising because probably even this time last year we'd have been saying about Galopin Des Champs, even though he'd won 1 Gold Cup, he's still a speedy Gold Cup winner. But last year, again, he just, as he's matured over the last 2 years, he's just travels best through his races, relaxes more, and he's a genuine stayer now. I think the trip in the John Dirk, and if that's where he does start, is inadequate for him these days, and it'll just be the perfect springboard to Christmas for him, as it was last year. And for me, he hasn't been over raced. He's still only 8. He's only had 13 starts over fences. I still think he's very much the one to beat.
I agree.
I think his price in the Gold Cup is probably fair. Look, fact to file, I went through before actually to work out. In 4 chases, he only beat 15 horses. That's not nothing down to him, and that's more of the state of the way racing is at the moment. But I'd like to see him do it and jump in a bigger field, in a stronger, more competitive field. He was really good in the Brown Advisory. He travelled all over them, and I think he was a comprehensive winner. I thought he was good. And I do expect him to step up. And he didn't have that hurdle season, so he's open to any amount of improvement, really, because he's only had those 4 starts over obstacles.
Yeah.
But just purely on form, his price is basically factored on potential over actual form at the minute, I would say. And whether they shouldn't be so close in the market, I wouldn't think. I think obviously we've seen before, it's not easy for Gold Cup horses to come back, but Galopin Des Champs has done it once already. I think that's where you're coming from in that angle. I can understand why Fastorslow and Gerri Colombe are a bit further back. I don't see how the horses that Galopin's been beaten really turn the tables on. And when we come to talk about, when we're just specifically talking about the Gold Cup, I don't see how they can turn the form around with him, really. So you are looking for one of the second season chasers to beat him, and Fastorslow, Factor is probably the one. But as I say, just in terms of purely on price, I think he should be a bigger price on what he achieved last year as a novice.
How much of it is a concern for you that the last horse to win the Brown Advisory and go on to win the Gold Cup was Bobsworth in 2011?
I haven't really thought about it, to be honest. I haven't got to those stats back yet for the book for doing the Cheltenham guide yet.
Well, let me put it another way then. How much?
Who have we got then?
So Gerri Colombe emerged from. Really, he should have won the Brown Advisory, and I think that's very, very clear given the subsequent exploits of the Real Whacker. I don't know how the hell he didn't win it. So we'll just take Gerri Colombe very positively. He's run well in the Gold Cup, and he's obviously won the Great Royal Aintree. Presse, he's had his setbacks and he's had his issues, but I don't think he's good enough anyway. Monkfish, plagued with injuries. Champ, top of the game, as my producer rings me. Presenting Percy, Might Bite. I mean, Might Bite was a
Might Bite
was a hell of a horse.
He was like, he won the
second in the Gold Cup, won the Aintree race, and
won the ball. Yeah.
Then ended up in cross country races because he was a complete and utter lunatic. Black Lion, Don Poley. Don Poley was a really good horse in his day.
How many of them would you expected to have developed into a genuine Gold Cup performer? Like, say, Might Bite won a King George. By
the way, apologies. Russian disinformation and fake news has just infiltrated the Final Furlong podcast. Lies and disinformation on this show. Not corrected, by the way, by the fact checker Paul Ferguson, a paid shill of Vladimir Putin, pushing the false propaganda and fake narratives of the establishment media. How dare he? It was Lord Windermere. It was the last horse to win the Gold Cup, having won the Brown Advisory.
Oh, yeah. I was
Bobsworth. Yeah, he did it as well.
There you go.
Yeah, so it was actually back-to-back wins in the Gold Cup. Never mind. It's actually a great trial. It's amazing how those trends can change, isn't it? No, it's a fantastic trial. I just... There is a narrative that race can take an awful lot out of a horse. And Might Bite's been second. I don't think it's a problem, and I really like the fact that they didn't run him again. There was no entry, there was no punches down, there was no ferry.
Yeah, I thought that was quite significant for Willie and the JP also. I don't even think he got an entry, did he? A punch down? I'm pretty sure he didn't even get an entry. So it must have been a conscious decision. Right, he's done enough. So
I'm pretty sure Mark was saying that after Cheltenham as well. That's enough now.
Was he? And I think. Well, it's not they've just treated them the way they spoke to him, even in like the build up to Cheltenham. He was spoken of as in glowing terms in terms of Willie's horse, which.
Well, Tony Mullins was saying he would win the Gold Cup. He'd beat Galopin Des Champs.
Hey, oh God, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, of course he was. Yeah, Manella Indo was second in the RSA as well, by the way, before he won the Gold Cup as well.
It's the best trial. It's the best trial for the Gold Cup. Everybody says it. Everybody says it to me. Very smart people are saying it's a great trial.
I don't think we can hold that against him by any means. So, yeah, again, I don't think he's short of pace at all. I think he'd be more than a home over 2-4, 2-5 trip. Stepping up and trip didn't seem to be an issue in the Brown Advisory. I think he'll get the trip easily this year in the Gold Cup. I haven't really got any negatives about him. Only his price. Like I'd say, I just still think his price. He doesn't really deserve to be at this stage on what he's beaten. Similar sort of price Galopin Des Champs, but say that could change after one start easily, and then at the start of the season.
But you see, this is where it could change, Paul. But I think you and I are coming at this from a very different way. I think your attitude is, he could bolt up and then the 4-1 looks great. I think he could get beat and then become the bet for the Gold Cup. Because if he gets turned over and Jeff Banks loses his mind and goes, maybe Jeff has a concussion and goes, 10-1, guys, he's got no chance. That's when you strike. Like this is all about price. Like, this is what ITV are not doing properly on that bloody show. Everything about this is price, and everything about this is betting. Right? It's the biggest selling point for the sport. If Fact to File gets turned over first time up, you could immediately go, oh my goodness, maybe he's not as good. Doesn't matter. It's Willie Mullins early in the season. Ignore that. If that horse goes out to 8-1, he's the automatic bet for the Gold Cup straight away.
Yeah, I'd say that was fair enough. Like I'd say, for me, Galopin Des Champs still sets the standard and will be the one to beat. But if there is one who's going to come through and challenge by March, it's going to be Fact to File. I think the way he went through the race as well in the Brown Advisory, I actually watched it back before we came on air today, and you forget how easy he travelled, and you could call him the winner a long way from home, I thought, to be honest. And Monty Starr, to be fair, did travel well with him, but just couldn't live with him in the closing stage. And I think that there lies the difference with, I see Monty Starr as more a top-end handicapper, Coral Gold Cup, even the Grand National, hopefully. I say it might be that he develops into he's good enough to win an open graded race, but I think from last year's crop of novices, which in the staying division, I say there was plenty of depth there. I think Fact to File was the standout. Okay,
I'm in agreement with you. I don't like the price. I'm kind of hoping he gets beaten first time up, which is a perverse way of looking at things. But if he then drifts out to 8-1, you know the ability he has, you know the talent he has, and you know that Willie's horse is getting beaten. Fact to File was beaten first time up last year. So was Ballyburn. So was GDC. Didn't affect them when it came to Cheltenham. All three went on to win.
And then earlier, where else do you see him going? Like, given his record at Leopardstown, you would imagine that the Leopardstown races are going to be on his agenda, that the Savills chasing the Irish Gold Cup.
Yeah, I think it's more likely that he goes for the Savills than the King George. Now, I'm willing to be corrected on that, and maybe JP has some notion that he wants to go to Kempton instead. And maybe they don't want to take on Galopin Des Champs early on. I kind of feel like they're going to have to. And it's going to be fascinating to see where they start. Like what his first race is going to be is going to be very interesting.
Willie's got that many that they're going to have to run against each other, some of them. You can't keep them all apart. And it would be really disappointing if Fact to File example goes to Tremor on New Year's Day.
No. It's possible that they... Is it the Future Stars? The intermediate chase? Like, I'd be amazed if one of them doesn't... Some Irish horse is probably going to rock up in something like that.
Sandown, possibly.
Yeah, there's going to be another couple of British races they can... Like, they're not going to turn up in the Betfair Chase because it's just too much of a grueling slog. So that's why it's a dead race. And you could just throw away your season for one race. Like, it doesn't make any sense anymore. But there's plenty of other races that in the UK that would be attractive propositions to go for and that are valuable. Willie's travelling over to the UK on a regular basis with pretty moderate horses. He's obviously going to do that with his Grade 1 class horses as well. I think that the tried and tested route for Galopin Des Champs isn't going to change. He is going to start off in the John Durkin. He will go probably for the Savills, Irish Gold Cup, and then on to the Gold Cup. that's where it becomes tricky with a horse like Factifile. Yeah, you can run him in those races, but are you prepared to take away Galopin Des Champs' chance of winning or compromise Factifile's chance of winning? Only one of them can get the gold medal. And then when you've got Gaelic Warrior as well, like we both think he's going to go for the King George. It's a balancing act, and it's not going to be a particularly easy one, but it's a high-class problem for Willie Mullins to sort out.
It is, and I don't think any other trainer will have any sympathy with him if that's the problem he's got throughout the season. So splitting them up is going to be difficult. Am Maximus, he's going to be pitched in. I just don't see him making the jump now. For all he was a brilliant Grand National winner, still don't really see him as being a Gold Cup contender. But time will tell, and then maybe that'll come into it with ownership as well, because JP's obviously got Factifile, Inothewayurthinkin, Spillane's Tower, Corbetts Cross, Am Maximus, all as possible Gold Cup contenders.
I think we've seen enough Grand Nationals now to know that you can be a really good Grand National winner, but it doesn't mean that you're capable of winning an Open Company Grade 1. Like Noble Yates is a good horse, but he's just slow.
Yeah, he's just not. I didn't think he was up to it before last season either. I'd have Am Maximus in a similar bracket, really. So
he's slow.
Around 16-1 for the Gold Cup would have absolutely zero interest.
If there was a 0 on that 16, then yeah, possibly. But no, not at that price. I'd have zero interest in him for it. For all that, I think he's interesting. But he beat a bunch of Gold Cup has-beens in the Grand National. He was brilliant that day, and he was a good winner for us. But no thanks. The bet for the Gold Cup for me is to hope Factifile gets turned over on his seasonal debut and then strike when Jeff Banks goes 8-1 plus about him. Who is the bet for the Gold Cup for you right now, though? Looking at the
just at the prices. If someone gave me a free bet today, I'd take 7-2 about Galopin Des Champs over 7-2 Factifile, because you're talking proven form over potential at this stage. But I can see where you're coming from. It's a possibility. But for me, I don't think I probably haven't spoken about Galopin enough, really. But he didn't do much wrong at all last season. In the heart of the season when it was expected, as we said, beaten first time out, beaten again at Punchestown. But when it really mattered, he was there on all three occasions. And I thought again he was a thoroughly convincing winner of the Gold Cup. And I would love to see him get back to, whether he wins it again, but I'd love to see him getting there in the same sort of form as last year. And certainly setting the standard once again.
Do you think any of these horses could beat Gerri Colombe by 23 lengths?
I think possibly if there's one of them, and the only one it could be Factifile.
I agree.
Unless you're talking maybe around Kempton, Est Francais might beat him 20 lengths in the King George. or Gaelic Warrior.
Oh, come on, Gerri Colombe. Wipe that smug off Paul Ferguson's face and absolutely smash up that cheese-eating surrender monkey in the King George. Let's go.
I think he gets undue criticism, to be fair.
Yeah, I agree. I was one of his critics.
I think he's a high-class staying chaser. And he was. I don't think he was at his best that day, and it's tongue-in-cheek what you're saying. But I just don't think he's got the natural pace of Galopin Des Champs or possibly Factifile or the two who I mentioned for Kempton. So, but if you get a soft ground, strongly run race somewhere, he'll come back to the fore, and I'm sure he'll have another good year again, ending at Aintree, I would imagine, like I said earlier.
I think there's an argument to be said that Galopin Des Champs should be 2s. And if it wasn't for his defeat at Punchestown, maybe he would be. And the Punchestown defeat means nothing. Be sure, in the context of his overall season, it doesn't matter that he got beaten at Punchestown. We know that from last season. He was
beaten there the year before and came back last year. I think 7-2 is more than fair at this stage.
But remember, there is a chance he gets turned over again in the John Durkan, and again, I wonder what price they'll drift him out. That's the thing. He's already at a position that you can't go 5s, because then it's the scumbag each way bet, and there's no way he's out of the first 3. Maybe 7-2, but that's all it's going to be. Factifile gets turned over on his debut. Oh, pick a really hard race for him, Willie. Gets turned over on debut. Mark gives him a considerate ride. Jeff goes 10s. Boom! Happy days. Of all the races we've talked about, which is the horse you're most interested in having a bet on from an ante-post perspective? Is there anything that particularly stands out to Paul Ferguson?
The one that would stand out would be, I'd if Jeff was willing to match the best price on 10-1, come on, Jeff. King George for Gaelic Warrior. I think he's only that price, or only any price over 5-1, because you don't know where he's going to go. But for me, like, if you'd said last Christmas there was one race tailor-made for him, things went a bit differently and unexpectedly, I'd say, in the second half of the season. But if there was one race that was tailor-made for him, would be the King George of Kempton. So I hope the Gaelic Warrior goes that way, right-handed, back up in trip. Yeah, he'd be the one who I'd be most interested in.
He ran to a time form 1:58 that day at Leopardstown, bearing in mind it was a novice. Gerri Colombe ran to a 1:66 plus when he just got up to beat Invoyalen and Down Royal, and was back to that level when he won at Aintree. Gordon, rev him up for the King George. Let's get him to Kempton. Gerri Colombe for a nice Christmas bonus at 7-1 with Jeff Banks bet is my ante-post bet. Then Gordon comes in and says, we're going to go back to the Savills shit. No, Gordon, no! All right, that's it. You can get your copy of Paul Ferguson's excellent Weatherbys jumpers to follow right now at weatherbysshop.co.uk. Your promo code for £3 off is FFJTF2425. FFJTF2425, all lowercase. It's on the screen now if you're watching us on YouTube. I highly recommend it. It's a brilliant read. It always is every single year, and the amount of work that Paul Ferguson puts into it is mind-blowingly impressive. Incredible insight, incredible research, and fantastic insight and information to get you set for the whole season, to get you on the gravy train. There's already a 6-1 winner that has been unearthed from that. €3 off for our Irish viewers and listeners at weatherbysshop.ie. £3 off the print edition, the digital copy, that's what I've got, or the print and digital bundle. £3 off now at weatherbysshop.co.uk using your promo code FFJTF2425. Paul Ferguson, pleasure as always, my friend. Looking forward to catching up with you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, thanks, Emmet. It'll be good to be back. I look forward to it.
And thank you for listening and watching this episode of the Final Furlong podcast. I know I was supposed to do this. I know that Trish is going to bollock me out of it later on. I'm supposed to be asking for likes, Paul. Hit the like button on YouTube. Hit the share button. You know, every other bloody YouTuber does this, and I don't. So, like, if you can make up for it now, if you're still here for your promo code, hit the like button. Even if you didn't like it, still hit the like button. It's a massive help with the algorithm. From Paul Ferguson and me, Emmet Kennedy, look after yourself and each other. God bless.
The Final Furlong podcast is proudly brought to you by Jeff Banks Bet. Get up to £500 refunded as real money for new Jeff Banks online accounts after your first month of betting. Use promo code FFP500 at jeffbanks.bet and buy BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Our listeners get 10% off your first month. So give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/FURLONG.